Rachelle, as though it were a sculpture, helps me understand what I do. She describes editing as cutting down a poem until only what is essential remains, even if what is left is nothing. The spine of the book. She is asking what is at the center of concern, of inquiry. An independent scholar, Rachelle is interested in both labor and the after hours, what we do to make meaning or an hourly wage or to make the hours pass, and what we do when we are not beholden in that minute to exchange ourselves for something else. She is a poet of pastiche, of pun and humor and dry wit, taking her theoretical interests and applying them to the mundane and quotidian. As she writes, the occasional cigarette, the occasional lay, the occasional beer, the occasional poet. Here is the occasional poet of working at Anthology Film Archives, the occasional poet of leather and dreams. As she says later in the interview, I think we're always engaging with the past when we are awake. Her poems are awake, they beckon. As her poem Topiary opens, I've rearranged everything here, and she has. She has taken the world and distilled it, rearranged for you to enjoy or to puzzle your way through or to. Throughout her gorgeous chaplet, Protests and Orison, Rachelle provides little metatextual moments, a speaker opening our way into the poems, distinct from whatever speaker we may look to within the lyric tradition. She writes above a poem titled Approbation. This poem is called Approbation, though someone has suggested I call it Spinal Tap. Sneaky cheek, delightful. For Rachelle Rahmé, to tell it like it is an elusive ethic, one that requires both certainty in speech's assignments and transcendence found in thought's attention to itself and want. These poems know through degrees of proximity, what's to hand, what's occasional, what's remote. She does not want to make poetry out of horror, which is imminent, but knows what's common, even if repetitive, makes poetry happen through its phenomenal dailiness. To notice it, Ramé's work watches, is distracted, a form of uninhibited watching, located in the locus of attention that itself senses to. Rachelle Rahmé is a Lebanese American poet and scholar interested in collaborative liberation methodologies. Rahmé is the author of the chapbooks Count Thereof Upon the Other's Limbs, Puce Commodity, and Bataille's Eggs. Her translations of the philosopher George Bataille's occupation poetry was published by Oblique in 2021. She was a 2021-2022 Merge Circus B Fellow at the Poetry Project, and her poems and translations have been published in Phonograph, Threefold, Field Notes, No No No, The Tiny, Hot Pink, Anus, The Brooklyn Rail, among others. Her interdisciplinary work has been presented by Issue Project Room, Roulette, Microscope Gallery, and PS1, among others. Rahmé holds a master's in philosophy from the New School for Social Research. Currently an MFA candidate at Literary Arts at Brown University. Please welcome Rachelle Rahmé.
Thank you, Emily. And the Belladonna crew, and thank you, Kaleem, and thank you all for being here. Especially today when I'm reminded, perhaps because of the rain, of the audacity to vulnerability. It's like today I'm going to be performing my version of Ono's cut piece, and that's an uncommon feeling for me, in which every poem feels like a snip of some sort, exposing myself as we go along. An uncommon feeling, it's true. So this is a collection of new and old poems to that effect, around a set of subjects that still give me pause and concern. This is called Questionable States in the West. A brief and vivid sopping persists in cadmium, to a warm potato, one for each pocket. Will dry differently by morning, old things, foxholes dot the school hill. The last piece of hobnail milk glass is sunrise this morning. Pale gray lamp recovers a permeable room. So you sleep every day, as well as ask me the questions that only sleep can. So you ask of each snow stride, turn me round this rock. So you ask of darkened pictures. Protest in Orison. I was watching our shadows hybrid, poetic, often abundant, on the white wall, literary, visual, auditory, textual, as we fucked in a dim, as hour, often, light on my hands, and external 20th, 21st recurring. Fragment to a lower degree. The light shines clear through the leaves that vine. We've been thinking along a continuous plane. Simply put, the cars are parked, the bird has come home nesting. No one wants to see each other in this state, snappy. My letter home, with nowhere to send it, sits in a drawer collecting mints, paper clips, and pennies. When exactly is mid-morning? Apocrypha makes us cheery, and you could also be my child. Those tales of persons great and misunderstood that you admire take the form of a caustic reliquary endeavored to contain. By listing my concerns and crossroad offenses, seratum to dead matter, I suspect I failed to conclude. So more to become the utility of packed cement in mannerist discord until I again pour myself. Involution number 1. I don't want to make poetry out of the horror. I want to tell it like it is. I don't want to make it beautiful. It is ugly. I don't want to have empathy for the monster. Do I have a right to this? Will you read it? Does it have to be a song? Does it have to be audible? Will it always be poetry? Is it ethical? Is what I know best always best? Have I shined the apple for so long that all I see is myself? The occasional cigarette, the occasional lay, the occasional beer, the occasional poet, the occasional web, the occasional ripple, the occasional solace, the occasional kiss, the occasional art, the occasional full moon, the occasional passing car, the occasional tale, the occasional season with a number, the occasional loss, the occasional storm, the occasional algorithm, the occasional sync, the occasional fantasy, the occasional match, the occasional jazz, the occasional suicide, the occasional slut, the occasional critic, the occasional meal, the occasional reading, the occasional window, the occasional sparrow, the occasional drift, the occasional mill. Thoughts are common, books are common, kindness is common, hatred is common, mail is common, television is common, bathing is common, dressing is common, light is common, night is common, time is common, sleep is common. This poem does not have a title, but it is dedicated to my friend Katie, who always gives me shit. Don't even fucking loll at my drink. We're 4 to 2, thus this isn't Glasgow, and we're not going on and on and onyx to get by way of pool, cheap players, friendships made to last that lack those things she thought were supposed to improve a real happiness in the sense of life's meaning. Disabused migrations, perhaps I do have other things on my mind. Perhaps I do dream poorly, that I liked Tango's comments on art, do it better, and sounds can frighten me, and I am animal, that I liked Tango's comments on diet, it's no Lucretius fruit, it's bloodthirst sugar, that I was born to the sound of bombs, perhaps I shouldn't be driving, I'm distracted by the moon, moving water, carnivals, bikers, mistrust with most persons in groups, severely open to strangers, subject, poetry, denial. I am distracted by song, I sing. Perhaps the present is not to be mentioned. There is no box to check for anyone's kind mistrust. They don't want anyone better than they are, nor do canned superlatives. That my attitude needs a job. We call this feeding hour, as close and dark as you can. Men can be wolf to God. If it isn't either or, then neither. Every permanent hold and gun barrel in my country is their coastal dismay. Don't forget the mass holes, how I'm going to break it. Perhaps the dream is over as you own nothing and are fully owned. Sometimes the Easter egg is rotten. I won't. This is the poem Approbation that Emily so kindly introduced. Indeed, someone suggested that Spinal Tap is a more appropriate title. Can be the judge. What are we having tonight? I couldn't respond because I didn't know. I had nothing to lose but a remote possibility. We're glad. I, for one, know we've had our ups and downs. We'll take. And to drink? I just stay in bed all day otherwise. We need a motivating factor. That's why we need to discuss what we're going to do. What are we having tonight? We need to divide things in equal parts. I made a pre-investment. That's why we need to discuss what we're going to do. Well, I'm having, and I'm going to have. Can we have? Certainly. Are we ready to order? I'll have the same. I'll have, and we'll have one of everything we'll take. Wi-Fi DNA. Yellow lines on the cement and bits of old blackened gum. Buildings still for sale. Chicks having a drink. I forgot it's Friday, in which the officers plan to be out and armed. No beer in that deli. I walk in and out. They're probably used to that. People and life go on. They say we're creating more trash. That's impossible, fake. What? There's no more movies, no more ushers sweeping up popcorn, collecting abandoned drinks and candies, sometimes a mini bar bottle. No more theme park slushies, greasy powdered plates of stale funnel cake. It's none of that garbage. Impossible, fake, so it seems. Brushes pushing away yesterday's ashes, detailing the Audi RS6, washing it caressingly with soft bristled paint brushes and non-abrasive suds. A triangle of concrete bombarded with yellow rays, one brimming with grasses. This is personal cinema. Another chance to dull sound fields that thoughts process, not some used up, worn-in ritual. When I rejected the discourse before it was at hand because it said to me, hold, totally hold. Artists are born and taught to live in reverse, to meet their start, grasp a thought and its structure so poignantly beached. Generations hardened to datedness become odd, speechless, but always in the new, till you consider the painter in the well-known room and the model who sets the lights up to illuminate her platform briars. Disclosure poised above unreality and the void that is ever. Awaiting the final first guest, antithetical to thought, conditioned to our becoming highway. Independence returns to its processional overlapping, a gradient with heavy lids, can further explain what does and does not let light through. When the parade chimes freedom, you do something useful by collecting subjects for the soft-grained human anthill. It is the opposite of murder. The book often outlasts the life, as evasive boundlessness swinging from an ear, pledging that will always change. Made certain by dialogue and time alone. Specious case made for my page on your lap, both change in common. What endeavors to blow past or dwell discursive, erasing a few decades of progress, risen cyclone. Stragglers vary with the wind's howl. City plans on the architect's desk bracket the catastrophe transposed in each bargain. On top rests the last pressed form that fell. Never as cumulative as a result, as could rest. Infrastructure tiresome when the air does not go to meet you. Bent corners, the joint binds one and one on aerial heights, though not in the same breath as we sink into background. This is redshift for Allah. Where do you go, Father, when you disappear for years? Where do you go when you sweat, when you shake? Was my introversion gained in the early loss of my breath and beat, in the hands of the crowd, in their farce, in their force? Where were you, getting high while I die? Alternative. Or perhaps Apollo himself orders death and sex to twist like a confection, golden skin on a golden ray. After all, we are only human here, being so detectives of glory and sanguine sweetness. We sniff it out, fall in awe, leer after the radiant burn core, gratuitous, gluttony in giving praise, forgivable this vice. So radiant the shield, sun disk, perhaps the chariot itself is ignited by the old Zippo. And this is the last piece. It's called Models for Peace. How quickly it burned up and was gone. In that order, they imagined they'd once crash landed on this planet. Year one burned up, and year two was the afterburn. No chance in reversing its dispersal, its definitive usage. Burning up, it must be the atmosphere is indecent to caress, profound and dignified, changing amplifications to hear the innards, where you get really beautiful in summer. 1508 East Helen Street, bootlegs or bust. Find the wailing words hiding somewhere, taking leaps at certain gratitudes and feeling shy, which means put out by myself as the white dress in my dream makes fronds of them. Resistance to any action at all, the projects take over life. I connect them to my subconscious. I only know 3 ways to access it: art, production, bibliomancy, sex, very specific acts just for brainstorming as it relates to problem solving, not shopping, not driving. How close is too close? How many degrees of separation are adequate for a lasting, making things substantial? How drab in that break in a year? Fall away, dash it to smithereens. Always a display, can't keep track of my dream where someone said I'd be dead soon. It didn't faze me. It's a spiritual journey. Being there appears to be a spiritual connection, A to B. On which deck to play it was so sad, making sex promises, getting a little too afterthoughtful, actual thought where I no longer. Where from? Was it good? You look good like that, very Sphinx-like, came with rings to spare. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachelle, so much. And now we'll have Bahar. Hi. I wish that Ayaz could be here. It would be so sweet if Ayaz was here, but I'm glad to have had a chance to sit with this really lovely little chat, and to try and maybe say something insightful about it. Maybe not. Kaleem Hawa has a remarkable capacity to take something that is logically or discursively tightly wound and run it through this really generous sort of laxity of image and narrative.
I often wonder how a poem can be discursively minded without being douchey, or can be clear about its commitments without falling into maybe some kind of didacticism. Hawa offers one answer to this question in this kind of, it's like a Spicerian move or something, where there's like a, a tautness between the poem's logical or narrative substance and then its sprawling relationship to image and description. And this tautness, I think, opens a space for surprising kinds of sentiment to happen. Hawa follows an associative chain of images that is often disjunctive, but never jolty in that paratactic way, which is sort of like ubiquitous since like language poetry, new sentence stuff or whatever. And it's kind of lazy, I think, or I don't know, often it's lazy. In these poems, movement between images holds surprise, but instead of producing a sort of paratactic thrill, its elegant surprise produces a kind of alienation. I'm thinking here, for example, of part of this poem Maintenance that's in the chat, where these sort of lush lyric descriptions of Al-Shafi camps sit next to these images of really sort of immense violence, and then also there's this like third register that is a kind of removed inquiry that's syntactically dense and contorted and weird. And I think that the alienation produced by this kind of discursive movement between scales, I think this alienation is the kind of affect that feels right for poems which task themselves with metabolizing these kinds of daily horror in the way that Hawa's poems do. This taut mode allows one to have commitments, and this chapter certainly isn't coy about its commitments, without falling into a didacticism or a sort of personal outpouring of grief, an offering of like an already congealed sentiment that is meant to produce recognition. This movement between scales with alienation, these poems allow us to stay with this sort of non-meaning of abjection long enough to encounter maybe weirder and possibly more politically animate feelings, I think. And I'm going to say something about Lacan, and we'll see if it works. Which is that there's this part in Lacan's 20th seminar where he's talking about love and discourse, and then he's talking about Rimbaud, and he says this thing where he says that love is the sign that one is changing discourses. And I was thinking about this when I was reading this chapter, changing discourses, this idea, this movement between discourses, but also this like unfastening and refastening of words to their discourses or something like this. And so if love is the sign of changing discourses, I guess for me, there's this question then of like, what is the object of Hawa's love here? I think, you know, in Rimbaud, there's a sort of lyric view that is like an object of erotic love. And here, there's maybe a little less of that. We're left maybe with the object of love being maybe this discursive tautness itself, or maybe a set of political or poetic commitments that the chap is taking up. Kaleem Hawa is a writer and organizer who lives in New York City. His poetry has been published in the Poetry Review, the White Review, and Mizna, among others. Please listen to me.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I've never had anyone analyze my poetry before, so I would want to read that over again, because that was really beautiful. I am very generous, so thank you. I am glad to be here. Thanks everyone for being here in the rain. Thank you, Rachelle, for your reading. And I tried to pass along copies to people I personally find it hard sometimes to follow poems if I'm not reading it. So if you want to share with someone next to you and read them, I'm just gonna actually read all the poems in order from the chaplet. So yeah, the name of the chaplet is They Pour Down the Park. Yeah, first poem. Poetry's project is to remind you of your mother. There are currents everywhere you walk. Slick jacks and typhoid Tims and the boys who don't write, but who slap their lingua franca on everyone else's chest in order to be afforded pronouncements. Not sure what dance I'm trying out here. Not sure why the contortion feels smoother in this part. Jagged belly, very smushed. A little wave of motion in a steam room, which sprouts into cartography. I walk too, can't help it, along the dead noise beat. Yelps and scaffolds from strung out hoes, who probably couldn't have helped it either, who certainly didn't know. Smelted light and tarot readings at the bar next door. We're smoking as some distant bell chimes, as if rolled under by a surface gale, which gives gifts. I spot an Arab in a tree. He's an angry Arab in a tree, keeping it loud to protect from the wind. Dressed up, hibernating, feeling good. Finger guns at every scrunched up face. Ooh, ooh, clang, baby. Clang, clang, shuffle, slink. I probably couldn't have helped it. Baby, baby, clang. Second poem is a long poem. This is the only one I think I've read before, so apologies if anyone has heard it before. This one's about Gaza. I wrote it in January. Maintenance. Perched atop a container for the management of surplus, you would be granted a particular advantage. A commons would stretch out before your witness, mass graves and women squatting over dirt. Were you to disassemble it into its constituent parts, you would confront bemused looks, an unknown family putting another up for the night. Their Zoom account, lessons and curricula, and all the words to teach manners and niceties and storytelling. If you were to destroy the receptacle, if you were to raise every little box, tear up the grass, streets teeming new valences of bravery and confusion met by might and sound, a new containment would no doubt be proposed for the neat demarcation of the safe and the desired upon. In a shati, there are squares for the maintenance of the sun. There are little fires burning, fed by small branches and ripped cardboard, used to brew tea and coffee and cook tomatoes. There is wind from the sea, little sheds in the sand. There are the faded signs of the international nonprofits, themselves comprising a faction in the great drama for the declaration of a suspended time, for the declaration of the production line. Most staff have long since packed up, save for the enlistees, snapped and folded into the regulatory matrix and then returned to the camp. Their flip-flops point leftward when they walk. Their base is the provision of goods and services, and their tips are the sweat of men. You hang them from their hands and feet. Light their genitals on fire. You give their words after a particular weight, and you do not ask the hangman for his postulates. These images of agony are romantic, but not perfect. The image of subjugation is perfect. In a fallen world, the soul returns to the birthing canal, flocking to amniotic rubrics for dissemination and release. To the suffering, there emerges an incantation to summon the costume rack and the jacket closet, a warm place to hide among the feathers and the furs and the sequins, and to banish the fear. These places can break and be broken. So too you, who cannot know the billowy place, the soft clothes, you who will try to lessen the horror of perfect images. In the same classrooms that teach Hazza, they teach alphabets and numeracy, and the teacher sways from the rafters strung up by some leftover cloth. From her vantage, an included scene of a woman emerging from a jail cell, embracing her husband, almost tripping on herself with joy. Later, she is draped in a Hamas flag. She will be swallowed by the evening, silhouetted by bestial nothing and away from the cameras. From her vantage, a vision for the great reconstruction. Streets will be widened, throats will be widened, and the lot will rule the day. New docks will stretch out and out until they tickle the underside of the frigate and the rake. After she is gone, you appear before a square, which today takes the shape of a big box. Covered in blue fabric, its velveteen waves and little white fairy lights shimmer in the smog. Approaching it, you see the tangled wiring, the faded spots, brighter when considered against the grain, like a Persian rug, but thinner, quite ugly up close, tall and imposing, too high to climb comfortably. But perhaps you could jump. Dig your fingertips into its edges and scramble up, kicking your feet and feeling the warmth of the bulbs on your forearms. Okay, next is a poem called 26 Minutes. It's the most recent one here that I wrote. It's kind of weird. On occasion, I think about which memories will return to me for the last. Probably the man with the baby sitting in the booth of a diner I once ate at. I write about it now based on a note, but the original texture is gone. This sort of memory seems far away from the usual drawstrings of self-pathology. The time I was slapped in the face, the way she dresses up when I say we are going to dinner, me watching a video of a father holding his daughter on the hospital floor. My usual weapons well honed. Others simmer in a basin of circumstantial awareness. The rage I feel at the self-congratulatory narcissism of Jewish allies. The times I needed to be respected, the sinking sensations. Further still are the divine memories, those that are neither my own nor truly others, an antiseptic, a tonic, plowed beaches, and a wicked tailspin. Animals that dig for warmth. These are the closest to freedom that I feel, though they are their own trap, affording magnanimity to incoherence, wiggle room for all sorts of unethical behavior, lying poems for lying people. These are insufficient as intervention or as poetry. They approximate the distance between déjà vu and unexpected routine. I wish for another form of experience, one that might spatialize time. I have developed for it my own type of method, which I will teach to you now. Take 26 minutes and learn about a neighborhood. Hear from the people who dance there after work. Watch their bodies and understand that they will grow older. It will all feel soft and sensual and will send you off to uneasy dreams. Okay, the next one, surprise, your light access was denied. It's an angry poem. When it snows, contradictions clear. Police state, dog piss poor state, alienation state of huddling and returning, leash guided, white heels given out for free over a seduction, a sliding counterpunch, opioid last stitch to save the communities from seduction, that which they've endured. The academy is like that, as are the social services, the laundromat, say, definitely the food bank state. Pleasure dome operators, tutting about the outer-lying regions, reclaiming the learning from those who taught it first in miseducation. Someone sent us a picture. Warm spots, small in number and hard to access, pockets of light surrounded by cold stretches, expanses, semiconductive night walkers, headed with wary determination towards another room, its bad iPhone charger, its bedside moisturizer creams. Hovered peripheries around scenes we were never meant to access. Access the bathtub state, alcohol state, write about fatherless kids who spin up dragged from burnt out suburbs to party and dance. Think about drug crimes for a moment. A pile of dried flowers with a white bow, denied leftovers from yesterday's collection, wine bottles, wine corks, books we forgot to read, noodle boxes, pots and packets, books we didn't ever mean to read. Sounds great, doesn't it? Not trash exactly, but also not trash exactly. Okay, several days. This is about the martyrs, Rachelle Rahmé and Father. Made the mistake of looking at a flower. My backyard in the summer. A funeral attendee writes 2 boys as a flower and the age of a flower. The arrival of death registered viscerally in an old photo of me looking happy. The 2 looked happy. Their sister did not ask for this. She looked younger then. We walked through an overly trimmed garden, noticing. Less now the death covers. Those tending to the flowers tried to, the less said for us, the better. I know that she was surprised at the sight of it emerging from the exhaust. I was too, but I fixate on things I think I understand. They rained down a bloom, a radius with roots. Don't stop the dogs, let them loose, let them bite the soldier. Let them, like I grant permission. Owe them everything, stay far away. A respectful gaze will suffice. They were gentle to those they loved, ruthless to the enemy. I must be too. I deserve nothing more. They are neither flowers nor mine. For the martyrs' commemoration, we brought 1 each, some water in a small wash bucket. The skin seemed cleaner and smoother than before the cigarettes. The stubble was shorter. My interests were incomprehensible. Wrote about them. Wrote about the PA officer who turned in his turned-in gun. The flag is over the cemetery now, over. The death is unfathomable. Heliocentricity marking history. What did I do when I saw Tilda Earth? She graduated. They decided not to turn themselves in. Next poem is about a memory from 3 years ago. It's called They Tore Down the Park. You leaf through some green stuff, snip it up, impress, dice it, twirl, and the glee radiates outwards to the lobby, where they point the temperature-taking gun to your head and you feign a shot. Stumble backwards, laughing at the look of horror on your face. I saw you in closing class then, demeaned, an anchor, an oppositional thing, like the planets when you move. After dinner, you tell us the reason the flavor profiles were so fresh was that they reflected your favorite time in Istanbul, September in Istanbul. And so you had decided to make your kitchen into Istanbul. I do not think this way. We dance a little and you tell me my eyes are honey colored, like honey in a jar, not like honey on a spoon. Wait, last poem. Projection. Okay, we made the signs, corrected a few spelling mistakes. The meek one stood in the corner, waging war internally, put the crazy and the beautiful, those that kissed antagonism on the lips, handed out a flyer and asked, do you want to be me? That morning, I ordered blueberry pancakes, washed it down with hot coffee in a white mug, and got some bad news, and then some more.
Thank you so much. Can we just get one more round of applause for Kaleem and Rachelle? Yeah, thank you both so much, and thank you all for coming. Chaps are up here. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.